This is my impression of Andy Serkis auditioning for the role of Mario as his character Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. It's me, Mario! Thank you.
Hey, fun fans, it's We Enjoy, here to talk more about poor Peter Parker with The Amazing Spider-Man and today's main event. We are the Mattitude Eric. I am Matt Fowler. Say hello, Eric Goldman.
Hi, everybody.
How do you say that actor's name? Rhys Ifans?
Reese for sure. iFans? I like iCarly? I don't know.
OnlyFans? Reese OnlyFans. He really enunciates, exacerbates that P sound, much like fellow Brit Tom Felton does as Draco Malfoy. It was Harry Potter.
Potter.
It's like for like 4 years, he really nailed that P. He was like, Potter.
Oh, by the way, that's a news story we should talk about.
Oh, the 20th anniversary special. Yeah. The original Holy Trinity of Harry Potter. Okay. This is a very Spider-Man heavy week because we're going to talk about the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer number 2 that dropped just a few days ago. And also just lingering Marvel news and Disney news from Disney Plus Day. Eric was like, hey, we should talk about Disney Plus Day since we didn't get to it last week. And that's not stuff that I usually have forefront in my mind. He's like, just pick a couple things. And I'm like, I don't remember what they had, but I'll do my
Then
best.
you can say it's so unmemorable that I don't remember it a week later.
I remember Marvel Zombies, and that's about it. Okay. So let's get into, let's start with what you just said. Let's talk about Harry Potter before we dive into the Marvelness of it all. Actually, I wrote Harry Potter in my notes today for Amazing Spider-Man 2. Amazing Spider-Man. I don't know why I said 2. We're not talking about the sequel.
I like it. I wish the title for the next one was Amazing Spider-Man 2: Amazing Spider-Man.
Amazing Spider-Man TOO. Like, look who's
not
talking.
Another Amazing Spider-Man.
So, yeah, because with the Amazing Spider-Man, the 2 movies that, they were aiming for a trilogy. It didn't happen, but they really had a background spine of lore that they were trying to build in with Peter's parents and Norman Osborn and stuff like that. And it never came to fruition. But I was always wondering if that happened because of the Harry Potter movies, which had just sort of finished one of the most triumphant culminations of like an actual franchise, having that many movies with most of the original cast always intact, especially the principal leads, watching them grow up, but always having individual movies that always had that background noise of Voldemort going through it. And I wonder if it had any sort of influence on what Spider-Man was rebooted as.
It couldn't have hurt, although it is funny to realize that the Raimi Spider-Man movies were coming out simultaneous to the Potter films. I will say Amazing Spider-Man, it was said when it came out, and watching it now, you're like, that there was certainly an influence of Twilight, having just been a massive success.
But I mean, like Harry Potter movies were coming out simultaneous to the Raimi movies.
Right.
But at this point, in 2012, we're looking at literally Harry Potter's final battles, like everything coming to fruition with all the characters in a big mega war. And I felt like there was an element of that because they were always trying to get Sinister Six on screen in some way. So
sort of, but I think it was just that they wanted the Sinister Six on screen.
I know, but I'm saying with the background, I'm just wondering if it had an influence. If they were like, we need some sort of story to build up rather than, poor Peter Parker every movie.
Yeah, I mean, they were trying for like an arc, of some sort. But yeah.
So the Harry Potter 20th anniversary special will be on HBO Max on New Year's Day, correct? January 1st. Mm-hmm. And it will have Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint taking part in this big retrospective special with lots of guest stars and fun facts and looking backs and feelings.
And then, the big deal here is that because there's a ton of other cast members participating, Chris Columbus participating, but especially Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson have pointedly not done anything Potter in many years. They haven't gone to after the first thing. Maybe they went to the first one, but they haven't gotten to any of the theme park stuff since the first time. They haven't gone to any of conventions or appearances. They've just they pointedly, unlike Rupert Grint, they didn't participate when Diagon Alley wanted them to record and do new stuff. And there's a terrible Hermione sound-alike on the Hogwarts Express. The Harry Potter one is
They just got Tom Felton to do it.
Yes. It's so weird because I'm like, there has to be someone who can do Emma Watson's voice better than this girl. So yeah, that was kind of the notable thing, is that like all three of them participating in something for the first time in quite a while, coming back for this.
And so we can all look forward to that coming in about a month and a half.
Yeah. And I think, it makes sense. It's like they have, they've never said anything bad about the series. I think understandably, they just wanted to put they were trying to not be identified only from the series. But now it's like, I'm sure this will be said a million times, including by people on the special, but this will be like a literal high school reunion for them because they didn't go to high school. They did Harry Potter movies through their teens.
Yeah.
So, of course they have fond memories of this, and this is a very important thing to them. And I did wonder, I was talking about this with some of my fandom colleagues, but it was funny because this was on the heels, the 20th anniversary was this week of Sorcerer's Stone opening, and Chris Columbus has been doing some press, and he talked about how he'd love to do direct the Cursed Child if they do that as a movie. And then it was funny because right afterwards they had announced, the three of them are going to do this reunion special. I'm like, is Warner Brothers going to be like, hey guys, you're here, let's make a deal? Because obviously,
and it would be for HBO Max, right? Like to get
I don't think it would be it would be a theatrical movie with a 45-day window. But there's no way Warner Brothers doesn't want to do that, especially with everyone so ho-hum on Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, this is not going to. The only thing getting me excited about Fantastic Beasts is the substitution of Mads Mikkelsen.
right. That's the next time. That's Fantastic Beasts and the substitution of Mads Mikkelsen,
which the completionist and the person who wants somebody to just the wanting not obviously the Harry Potter movie swapped out actors because of death. I mean, this movie you're swapping out an actor for a very different reason because of the Johnny Deppness of it all. But like, I love Mads Mikkelsen, but also I love continuity and order.
Sure. No, I get it. Yeah. It's tricky.
I am also not precious about these movies at all to the point where it matters to me. So, look, we'd love to see them come back. It is interesting. It's so interesting that Robert Pattinson is going the Batman route right now. Obviously, it's a very dark, gritty take on, probably the darkest take on the Caped Crusader world we've seen to date. And there have been some dark takes considering that, Ben Affleck's Batman has murdered people. But Robert Pattinson, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, I guess Rupert Grint, although he's always been sort of the third stooge of the three, right? Like as far as like popularity, it's really been those two, and then Rupert Grint. But they really just we did all these movies. We have plenty of money to last us our entire lives.
Yeah,
we're either going to not work or just going to do movies that we want to do. Daniel Radcliffe's been on a TBS series for 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I
don't even know if everyone remembers Miracle Workers. It still exists as an anthology series with Steve Buscemi.
Yeah,
and if he's not doing that, he's playing a farting corpse or
a guy growing horns,
or the Guns Akimbo disaster movie. I should say movie disaster.
Man, he should do a movie where he has guns fused to his hand, growing horns, and he's farting. Just
AKA, the dream.
But he's not a wizard.
Hashtag blessed. Emma Watson has probably been in the highest profile thing since Potter of the three, like with
she
Beauty and
is
the
in a
Beast.
$1 billion grossing
Yeah.
Disney movie.
Yeah. And then Rupert Grint's, I mean, right now he's been on that Shyamalan Apple TV series for 3 years now. But yeah. And then he also tried to reboot Snatch for, what was it, Epics or something? Or
yes, I interviewed him for that. And the female lead from that show, I also interviewed, and now she's like on Bridgerton. She's like a big deal. So, it's always that funny thing if like you interview someone
big time Bridgerton, yeah,
for something and it's kind of innocuous, and then they become like a big deal. Phoebe, I do not know how to say her last name. Dynever, Dynevo. Bridgerton fans, you know who I'm talking about.
You sound like Harry Potter trying to say Diagon Alley, and then
it's very similar.
Using the flu powder wrong and winding up in Nocturne Alley.
Before we move on to Spider-Man trailer, I will just say that notably absent from this reunion is J.K. Rowling. And
I thought you were going to say Alan Rickman. I'm like, Eric.
No.
Eric.
Although Maggie Smith is alive, but I mean, she's in the Downton Abbey sequel, but I don't know at this point. But yeah, J.K. Rowling, some people were tweeting me like, what about J.K. Rowling? Because I was tweeting about the press release, and it's like the only time she's even mentioned the press release was in like the about section at the bottom, where it's like about HBO Max, about Warner Brothers, about Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And it just was like based on J.K. Rowling's work. So she is not part of it. Not shocking. I was theorizing, this is not a shocking theory, but it's like, I'm sure Warner Brothers would love if she pulled a George Lucas and it's just like, I'll sell you the lot. I'm sure they would love to not have to deal with like kind of this burden of, already she has like veto power and she has so much control, and now she brings them nothing but bad press to the point where you can't have her on this special with the actors who have spoken in direct conflict to her over her statements, so that's a whole weird scene.
What if they had her on, but everyone was just smushing tomatoes in her face? Yeah, and going, boo. And going, poor J.K. Rowling.
And there's a dunk tank.
Oh. So, okay, before we'll talk, let's build up to No Way Home. So you wanted to talk about the Disney Plus days. What did you want to bring up about it? We got some announcements there. I mean, for those who haven't gone on to Disney Plus itself and watched the sort of specials, they give you sneak peeks ahead, sort of specifically if we're talking Marvel here. They had an MCU 2021 special that sort of packaged together the MCU shows on Disney Plus from this year. But then at the end, for the final like 3 minutes or so, they gave sneak peeks of Moon Knight, She-Hulk, and Miss Marvel.
And a tiny snippet of Secret Invasion.
Look at Fury. Yeah.
I know we're a week out, so yeah, we don't have to take too much time on this. I will just say, very strange that the things that people cared about the most, which was the Marvel stuff, of course, and Kenobi, you had to sign into Disney Plus to watch. Only because the whole point is to be like, look at all the cool stuff coming to Disney Plus and to either keep subscribers or get new ones. So I thought it was weird that just release every site is going to rip and release the Moon Knight and She-Hulk footage anyway. So why are you making people sign into Disney Plus to watch it? That seemed dumb. The Marvel stuff seemed really cool. I like that Moon Knight looked pretty dark and gritty for, a Disney Plus Marvel show. And She-Hulk looks really fun. And of course, I love the 70s Bill Bixby Flash, whatever the hell is going on where they're dressed like the 70s. It looks shot lo-fi.
Because we get that bridge finally of Smart Hulk from Endgame.
Right.
To back to human Mark Ruffalo, Bruce Banner, who we saw in the end of Shang-Chi. So
right. So we'll figure out his deal. These were very quick, but look fun.
Marvel Zombies, Agatha House of Harkness,
which is a great title. Echo
Spider-Man
got officially announced.
Echo, which is a character that will be introduced in Hawkeye, and Spider-Man animated series called Freshman Year. That is this rumored that it will. It's basically the MCU Spider-Man, right? They
said in the press release like origin story of MCU Spidey. So it seems like, okay, will this be about pre-Civil War Spider-Man, which is something you could definitely do. I'm just curious how much Sony would be involved in something like that. There's got to be some cooperation.
Is this when we find out that the MCU's Uncle Ben died from autoerotic asphyxiation.
This is where they do it.
Finally.
And honestly, the Marvel point announcement that got the most like woohoos, which was X-Men 97, animated series that will continue the 90s series. I just thought not only is it's a fun thing they're doing, but also to see the Marvel Studios logo on that was kind of amazing just because it's the first X-Men project Marvel Studios is doing. And it's a retro project, which I think is smart because we're not going to see X-Men in movies for a while, I don't think, which is also smart, even though people keep asking for it. But this is like, hey guys, don't worry. We're giving you something X-Men. And also, guess what? We're doing it classic. We're doing a thing where they're all wearing the classic costumes. Don't worry. When we do them in live action, we know what you like about the X-Men.
Yeah. So it's so funny how with every new MCU movie or Disney Plus series that has come out in the past year, except maybe Black Widow, there are sites who have to run like, Shang-Chi just gave us our entrance to mutants.
Right.
Or like the Eternals just explained how mutants will arrive. And it's like the most far-reaching theory of like how, the ones that made the most sense were at the beginning of the year when everyone was just talking about multiverse.
Yeah.
But now...
And WandaVision, because Wanda is a mutant in the comics, and we wondered if they would circle back to that,
Right.
With
and then of course the Ralph Boner of it all with
right
Peters coming in.
Boner alert.
Yeah. Boner alert. Let me think. Did Daniel Radcliffe's farting corpse also have a boner?
Oh,
I think he also had like
there was at least
a
one
posthumous
point.
boner.
I think there was at least one part where he got a boner. I saw that movie in the theater, by the way.
Oh, well, then you should know.
Radcliffe farting corpse movie. I'm there.
Yeah, for all of them. Anytime.
Wasn't that Harry Potter and the Riddler? Was that Paul Dano? Do I recall?
Was that Dane DeHaan or Paul Dano? I don't know.
I think it was Paul. I think it was Paul Dano.
One of those weirdos. All right. And then we got an announcement for Disenchanted, the Cheaper by the Dozen reboot, behind the scenes of...
We don't have to talk about all that stuff.
The new Willow series, but I bring this up to say that Disney Plus did not hold a fandom type experience. Mm-hmm. They made it a Twitter thread, yes. Wherein what I assume happened here, Eric, is that everything was scheduled. And when you schedule a tweet, there is no way to uncheck the people previously tagged in a Twitter chain.
Right.
They were tagging celebrities like, why can't I remember McSteamy's name?
Patrick Dempsey.
All
three of the Hocus Pocus leads.
And the incorrect Will Smith for a Nat Geo documentary.
Yeah, that was especially funny.
And
wrong Will Smith.
So all these people remain tagged in every reply on this Disney Plus announcement Twitter thread.
Both Disney's reply, continuing thread,
and any fan who is replying is also replying to this. And
even if they're replying to X-Men 97, awesome. And so Kathy Najimy gets to hear what people think about it.
And then she's like, yeah, it is awesome. I mean, we don't have to explain how Twitter works here, but I'm assuming that the reason why, as the hours went on, no one was untagging people is because it was all just scheduled to roll out. And there's no way to do that when you're scheduling you can't uncheck it.
Probably.
Okay.
The only other thing I want to say about Disney Plus Day was strange, because Marvel, I think they delivered enough, even though I still think it should have been maybe done differently. But Star Wars was oddly lean. I don't know why they released the Boba Fett trailer like a week or two before. Could have held it. Kenobi was some behind the scenes stuff, which was intriguing, but why not show just a little footage? Andor wasn't mentioned, even though they shot the whole season. So yeah, just strange that they could have shown more and they didn't.
Isn't Rogue One's anniversary coming up too?
It is very shortly.
So maybe they held it. Yeah, I know. So Andy Samberg got tagged, John Mulaney got tagged, everyone got tagged. We can stop talking about that now. Let's see. An interesting thing with your audio on the podcast, Eric, and this has been going on for about a month now. I don't think it was previous to this. When I say something that makes you laugh, depending on how hard you laugh, you go silent. Like your laugh is so loud that your mic just cuts out. So eventually your laugh comes back in, but sometimes when you do a big laugh, it originally just sounds like I'm being met with silence because your laugh goes so big, it breaks the podcast sound barrier.
Wow. Fascinating. All
All right. Let's talk about No Way Home. Eric.
Yes.
What a world we live in.
Dude, come
What
on.
the fuck? No one
Come
deserves
on.
this. No one deserves this. There's
This
no
is
good
ridiculous.
deed. There's no life lived. There's no good place life entered that could ever deserve this type of crossover culmination, like fans' wet dream fanfic project that is No Way Home. Like this is
Ridiculous.
ridiculous. This is absolutely diabolically absurd.
Yeah.
Like you and I are already coming out of a decade that gave us an Evil Dead series with Bruce Campbell as Ash,
Right.
the return of Twin Peaks, like
Right.
all these things we thought would never, we didn't even entertain these things happening.
Mm-hmm.
And, the larger conversation here is obviously you and I and people probably a few years older than us and a few years younger than us, like this weird Zennial Venn diagram cross section of commonality of pop culture in our past, like the unifying movies and TV shows that we all loved. We are probably, if not the last generation, next to the last generation of people who will have common things we enjoyed in our formative years, because now everything is split between
It's so
streaming,
fractured. Yeah.
streaming and movies and Twitch streams and all these things where it's like,
Which is not to say there won't be things people are nostalgic for. It'll just be more smaller groups than like almost everyone of a generation being
in the
like,
same
"Yeah,
way
I
that
remember
only 1 million people watch The Walking Dead now, and yet it's still somehow a hit show.
Right.
Yeah, like Eric and I come from an era when 40 million people would watch an episode of television, and and that's still 4 times as much as like the biggest Game of Thrones episode.
Right.
And there was just less stuff. It was just less stuff.
Yeah.
But the stuff we did like, and even within that stuff, even within the fewer things, there were still the smaller niche cult things, right? And those
Like
things, even those things, Eric, come back to us. Even the smallest minutia.
We're getting a MacGruber show.
The
like,
nerdiest bullshit. And the MacGruber is based off of an 80s TV show that also infuses Roadhouse into it. Like it's stupid. Okay. No Way Home. Oh my God. Just like the fact that we're getting a movie where it's like someone literally worked on the detail. It's not just like, hey, let's have Doc Ock and Goblin. Those are the biggies, right?
Yeah.
No, let's get an actual villain from each of the 5 previous Sony Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
Like, let's pick the best villain from each of them and use that. And then also bring in Tobey and Andrew Garfield, which weren't obviously in this trailer. But now that we know to specifically look for things they have edited out of trailers and Marvel trailers, it's very easy to see where they were or are in the movie.
Yes. There's a shot that is glaring in, like, why are these two of the 3 villains are not looking at Tom Holland's Spider-Man?
One is being punched by an invisible.
Well, that was only in the Brazilian cut of the trailer, but yes.
Well, the Brazilian cuts of trailers are always better.
Right.
So and obviously it's an awesome trailer. I also liked how this trailer acted as a direct sequel to the first trailer.
Yes.
That's so funny because they're like, all of us, we don't even have to go through the spell again. Like the spell, the forget.
No, it's telling a narrative. There's a arc to these 2 trailers.
Yeah, like he's working the Obliviate spell, much like Lockhart tried to in Chamber of Secrets. I'm trying to bring all this to Harry Potter.
Sure.
And he messes it up in the first trailer, and things go haywire. And in this trailer, it's just like, hey, remember when you messed up that spell?
Right.
And then so we got questions like, who's that second Goblin that looks like Tommy Wiseau, or James Franco as Tommy Wiseau. and who's in the Black Spider-Man costume. There's Stark.
Is there a Venom in this movie? Are there two Venoms in this movie? You know?
Is everyone a Venom in this movie? Is Aunt May Venom? Do we get other Aunt Mays? Like,
you know that Rosemary Harris is still alive? She's like 94.
Well, it's all that praying.
There you go.
She may be alive, but she is on her ass.
I love how those Uncle Ben isms that really stuck with you.
Because you and I watched that. We all watched that movie over and over again. Which, you know, is interesting leading into these Amazing Spider-Man movies, because I have seen the first one a couple times. Mm-hmm. The second one I only saw once in the theater. So I don't remember.
I'm going to see it twice in the theater. I think it's not twice in the theater.
Yeah, I have very little memory of that movie, except for like some imagery. It just looks awesome. It looks there's an interesting, and you know, we don't know how these trailers are cut together dialogue wise.
Right.
The way that the words seem to flow together indicates Peter is actively trying to save these villains' lives. Mm-hmm. We don't know who Strange is referring to or who they're referring to when they're like, they all died fighting Spider. Like, we assume it's the villains. We don't know.
Right.
Sandman didn't die. Lizard didn't die. Like, they all didn't die, actually.
They didn't all die, but most of them did. So that's an interesting thing to kind of even bring up directly. Or is it that if they stay in this universe, they die? It's a little confusing. The end of the trailer, which is like Strange, like saying, I can't stop, they're coming through or whatever. It could mean Toby and Andrew, but it could also mean other characters, like certain symbiote characters or other things. Like
Mr. Aziz.
Mr. The Dickoviches.
The Dickoviches and Mr. Aziz. All three Bruce Campbells.
Hoffman. Yeah. Hoffman from the Bugle.
we get the multiverse Betty Brant war.
Right.
Ned Leeds also somehow becomes Hobgoblin. Yeah.
I did we were all having our fun after this trailer. And so I did one because everyone was was mentioning how like, oh, you can tell they edited this shot so you couldn't see all three Spider-Man together. I said, they edited it so you couldn't see all three these guys together. And it was the three Flash Thompsons.
Yeah.
And someone pointed out to me that Flash Thompson is the only character besides Peter and May to be in all three universes. And I was like, oh, that's true.
Yeah, because Jameson wasn't in Amazing.
Yeah, and Betty wasn't in the Garfield movie. Like, yeah, there's like always at least.
Yeah,
and
like Captain Stacy isn't in the MCU or Gwen, right? So yeah, like
yeah. But Flash, yeah. So Flash is he managed to make it into all three.
But somehow we have 9 Bonesaw McGraws. I don't.
Team Bonesaw. So yeah, this is an awesome trailer. Look, guys, I saw this trailer under the best circumstances possible.
Yeah, you saw it in a packed theater, like an actual press event to see a trailer, like the thing that we all used to do when we would buy a ticket to a movie just to watch a cool trailer and leave.
Right.
Now is an actual press event.
A press event that, first of all, was 5 minutes from my place. It was at the Galleria, so that was great. Second of all, it was just crazy to see like this huge line there, especially because since that theater's a ghost town these days. It was the most I'd felt like a Comic-Con type energy since Comic-Con 2019, pre-pandemic, of like how hyped up people were. They're singing, they're yelling, they're playing trivia with each other, not the studio. They're just doing stuff themselves. And then guess what? Tom Holland was there, which is funny because, I saw, look, a lot of people were like, I can't, some people got there at 9 a.m. for 5 o'clock. They were like, these people waited all day for a trailer. I was like, well, you kind of knew they do something special. Did they know they were going to get Tom Holland? No, but it paid off well for them, I'll say, because it was like a half-hour Q&A with Tom Holland. So he came out. He was trying
to dress like a Tenenbaum.
He was dressed like a Tenenbaum. He was very sweet and wholesome as you expect him to be. He got like teary-eyed because the reaction was so thunderous to the trailer. But yeah, watching the trailer with that crowd was crazy. It was awesome. Just cheering and screaming every reveal. They
showed it more than once, right? Like
at the end, of course.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say at the end they got to show it again. Yeah.
I was sitting next to Lee from Nerdist and I said, you know what words we're going to hear tonight? who wants to see that again? And they held it for the end. They didn't do the back-to-back thing.
No, you got it. That's how you wrap things up, of course.
Yes, wrap it up.
And then in the cover of Darkness is when Royal Tenenbaum, Tom Holland can sneak out.
Right. And I get it. I get, the people were like, oh man, there's so many characters, blah, 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 and so much is going on, and they still have to deal with the fallout from No Way Home and his identity and all that stuff.
That's over in 10 minutes.
But I don't want it to be. I'm just saying
it's doable.
It's doable. And I think you and I, you joked. We joked about how when I said I've learned not to say like 3 villains is too much. It's how you handle them. And then you said, hey, what about we were into Infinity War and Endgame. I was like, yeah, totally. It's you can have a million characters if you keep the story focused the right way. It looks clearly, I say clearly, and everything can be manipulated. It looks like Doc Ock has the biggest part of the returning villains, and I think that's really cool because Molina's so great. It also looks like he is not a bad guy for the whole movie, which I also think is cool. And I think that's a smart way to do it. And then we'll see how much the other guys.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that when we talk about Kirk Connors today too, as far as the similarities between some of these villains as like scientists, specifically Mentors. Also Norman Osborn, like testing on themselves for various reasons, and because they're going to get the plug pulled on their project and stuff like that. Okay, moving on. This is great. MJ Falls. We'll see how that works out. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be. I have some ideas in my head of what could happen, and they're all awesome. So yeah, all right. Yeah. You can find Eric and myself on the Twitter machine at the Matt Fowler and the Eric Goldman. The podcast is at We Enjoy Podcast on Twitter, and you can write into weenjoypodcast@gmail.com. Or join our Patreon for just a couple bucks a month. You can get a commercial-free version of this podcast. That's nothing in no curious ads in Spanish, no boner pills, no political ads.
The same ad playing twice in a row.
Oh yeah, the back-to-backs. Oh, those are great. Like if you didn't hear the first, that's kind of like what the say. Hey, who wants to watch the trailer again?
Right. Like I said, it was kind of cool when it was the Halloween Kills ad because you heard the Halloween theme back-to-back twice.
And over on patreon.com/We Enjoy Podcast. Okay. And Joey writes in on Patreon. Actually, Joey, so I can't really answer this because Joey wanted to know if we had any quick thoughts on AEW's Full Gear. I'm not going to talk about wrestling per se on this podcast because not enough listeners care or know, but I do agree with you, Joey. Darby Allin versus MJF and Punk versus Kingston matches were great, if not the best of the night, and Hangman Adam Page going over were great too, Joey. I also appreciate that Cody Rhodes is refusing to turn heel while dressing as Homelander. Yeah, that's been going on a while. Actually, Cody Rhodes deleted his entire Twitter account just a few days ago, Eric.
I didn't know that.
Trying to squash a lot of the negativity against him, I assume, that he just doesn't want to look at, and I totally get it. I don't know why everyone's been so down on. I mean, I do, and I don't know why people have been down on Cody because it's sort of been like a death by a million cuts, like this plus that plus that plus that, like equals like an entire arena is now just booing him. It's nothing awful, but somehow it's all piled up into Jurassic Park sized pile of shit. Okay.
I want to mention quick breaking news that those sitcom like redos they've been doing where they do a script of an old sitcom like they did All in the Family and they did,
you mean like when they do a live version on TV?
Yeah. They're gonna do Different Strokes in the Facts of Life, and for some I don't know why, maybe because it's live and they want to eventize it, but they're not using kids for the kids on Different Strokes. What? So it's John Lithgow as Mr. Drummond, which is fun, but then it's Kevin Hart as Arnold because he's short, and David Wayans as Willis.
What? I mean, I understand. Damon Wayans, how old is he? Is he almost 60? I was gonna say, like, John Lithgow's pretty old, but still, like, oh my god. Okay, I mean, even worse is if they're doing the bike shop episode. Yes. Like there's so many awful there's like Willis gets a gun episode. There's and and almost shoots Mr. Drummond in the dead of night.
Sure.
Because he's coming home late from work and thinks he's an intruder. Actually, it's Andrew Dice Clay who's the bully. He gets the gun. He thinks he's a crazy bully at his school and gets a gun. There's one where two-parter where Kimberly gets kidnapped and almost raped. Yeah.
Sitcoms, guys.
The 80s. Also, yeah, and Facts of Life had some dark ones too. Not as memorable. I do remember the one where Tootie found out that Blair's ancestors were KKK, or like literal like grandparents were KKK members.
That's a funny one.
It is. It's hilarious. All right. Joey closes out by telling you, Eric, that the Guardians of the Galaxy video game is very good and you should play it. And I agree because I love that game. It was very good. Okay. Jeff Solomon writes into regular old email, and he has given me permission to summarize this because it's very long. But late to the story, but late to the party, but he had a story about Spider-Man 3 and he wanted to share some few notes from the Spider-Man 2 podcast. He says that Peter playing piano is not that crazy since Aunt May teaches piano.
All right, that's a no prize, Jeff.
That's fine. That's fine. But also, like, did she teach
him? Prize used to be a Marvel Comics thing where you point out a mistake, but then you point out the solution for it, and you can win a no prize, which is not a real prize. It was an empty envelope. So that's a no prize for giving why Peter would know piano.
Also, as a kid, I got a gumball machine for opening my savings account, which is not as useful as a toaster, but I was way into it until the gum got stale. I think that it's not as useful as a toaster, but to a kid, it's better, right? Gumball machine. Again? He's just saying he's referring to the Joel McHale scene where she wanted a toaster for opening an account at the bank, but she didn't have enough money, so she was too poor to get a free toaster. But Jeff says that he got a gumball machine as a kid for opening his first savings account.
They still I'm a member of Partners Credit Union, which is Disney's credit union, and they're always giving stuff like t-shirts for their latest MCU movie, or we have a plastic replica of the jar from Up that they were saving their money in to that we got that to join Partners. So why not a gumball machine? Why not indeed?
Okay. Jeff writes, Spider-Man 2 was the first movie I was ever allowed to see on the night of release. I was going to summer camp the next day, and if I didn't see it that night, I'd never see it in theaters, so I begged my dad. Then when I was 17, Spider-Man 3 came out, and I had permission to go on a school night for the midnight release, and I bragged for days to all of my classmates that I would see it before anyone. I remember clearly being in the middle of the show thinking, is it possible this movie is bad? I think it's when you were talking about watching it with everyone in the Chubby Checker scene, and everyone was just like that general, like, sick feeling of unease that washes over everyone, and the commonality of, like, no one's, like, looking at each other, but you can all feel that everyone feels like, the same way.
We're here to love something, and it's not working.
By the time Spider-Man landed in front of the American flag, I was content in knowing there was no redemption for the film coming in the final battle. I walked into homeroom the next day and everyone was pestering me to discuss the movie. Basically, Jeff goes on to say that, like, no one would believe him that it was bad.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. It's like, there was no way we could have anticipated that. We liked the Venom scene we saw. Everyone was back, the same director. And it's like, why they made two great movies? Why make just one that isn't great? Yeah, why do that? How about not do that? All right. Let's move on to our good things to enjoy. Next week, actually, I should say not next week, but next podcast, because we're taking next week off. I will be in California, taking some of my kiddos to see Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Goofy and Minnie Mouse.
Bullshit.
And Jack Skellington and Gaston and Ariel and Jasmine. Guys. I'm just going to name every character.
Sure.
All right.
I don't think we are going to be able to do a Hawkeye premiere episode, so we'll just do a season wrap.
I wouldn't. If I get to see them ahead of time, it won't be until Monday.
Right.
Anyway.
And I think that's what's going to be the case. So.
All right. The next podcast in 2 weeks will be The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is kind of similarly viewable on DirecTV subscription, along with, instead of the Turner apps, though, it's on FX Now, or what is that, Fubo that's everywhere?
Yeah, I always see that, and I'm never quite sure about it.
Everything is on Fubo, by the way. When I look on Just Watch,
everything is Fubo.
Everything is cool when you've got a Fubo. So our good things to enjoy this week. Why don't you start?
Okay, I will start with a funny one just because it's.
I'm looking at it right now, Eric. This is crazy.
This is crazy. I am picking 2 Survivor seasons that just hit Netflix. Netflix about a year ago. CBS is doing a funny thing with Netflix right now where they are like sampling, like they're giving them certain seasons of certain shows that are totally trying to be like enticing people to go elsewhere to see the rest. So about a year ago, Survivor had never been on Netflix, and then 2 seasons were put on Netflix. And guess what? Netflix effect. A bunch of people watched it on Netflix and were tweeting about it like it was new, even though these were 2 old seasons. And it was very funny for those of us who watch Survivor all the time that it was like, oh, wow, yes, here are the people on Netflix are like, this is great. This is so fun. Now they're doing it again, but they very pointedly picked probably 2 of the best seasons ever. I think most people who are fans of Survivor, like myself, would say these are 2 of the best seasons ever. And so these just hit Netflix. The funny thing is you can watch the first 34 seasons of Survivor on Hulu, and you can watch every single season of Survivor on Paramount Plus. But as we know, if it ain't on Netflix, it doesn't exist for some people, which is why CBS is doing this. So that's why my recommendation is Survivor season 16, Micronesia, and Survivor season 37, David versus Goliath. Both just hit Netflix this week. And both are just fantastic television. Look, I've never stopped watching Survivor. I've seen more Survivor than any show in my life because I've never stopped watching Survivor for 20 years. I love it. I think it's an incredibly designed show. Yes, every season isn't as great as the other, as the other one, but there still can completely be great ones. So all I'll just say is these are 2 great seasons of TV. I would recommend them both. Highly recommend them both if you want to just fun, intricate stuff. Great moments where you go, holy shit, that just happened. But I will say this, season 16 is probably the better season. It might be the best season they ever did. But I think there are a couple things that are going to be obstacles for people, including the fact that it's a fans versus favorite season, which means it's a half all-stars versus newbies. So you don't have to have seen the seasons the other people, the returning players are from, but some people would have liked to, but I still think you can watch it. It's fucking great. You'll love it. However, it's also pre-HD. So if you were like, it's not filling my screen, there's space on the sides of the screen, and it doesn't look as clear as I like, then you wouldn't want to watch this one, even though I think you should. But that's why I say everyone can enjoy 37, which is just a couple years ago, David versus Goliath. It's a fantastic season. It's super fun. It has a kind of a cheesy setup scenario, which is David versus Goliath is like people who've always succeeded versus people who haven't had things work out for them. And that's
like winners and losers in life.
Sort of like people who are
that
like
sounds
more like
very judgy.
But then, and it's a stupid setup, and then it completely kind of pushes past that. It doesn't really matter. It's just a fantastic season and has one of the best casts ever, because a lot of these times these shows live or die on good casting. And this is the season that has someone who unfortunately just got let go by WWE a few hours ago. John Morrison was on this season, but a very well-known pro wrestler. And this is the season with Mike White, who is kind of hotter than ever because he created the White Lotus, but other people know him as Mr. Schneebly, which comes up on the show, of course, and the writer of School of Rock, and he's done a million other things, Enlightened,
including and, Amazing Race, and Enlightened, like you just said.
So they're both on this season, so it's got a funny celebrity cachet, and now it's like the creator of the White Lotus on Survivor,
and they're both Davids, right?
They are both Davids. Now they're both Goliaths. It's great. So just, I know Survivor's been on for 20 years, which means there are people who stopped watching it 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And there's people like Matt Fowler who never watched it, but because these are easily accessible on Netflix, I figured I'd recommend them because they're 2 great seasons of TV that you should check out.
Are you counting this as the show you've seen the most of, and not counting Saturday Night Live, which has been on as long as we've both been alive? Because you just haven't, because you haven't seen every episode of
I haven't seen every
Live?
episode, and Survivor does like 26 episodes a year because they do 2 seasons a year. I think I'd still, I'd have to look it up. So
all right, next podcast, you have to
figure it out. Yeah.
Which one you've watched more. Yeah, never watched an episode of Survivor. For those wondering how it's been on only 20 years, but has 37 seasons.
41 now.
Yeah, they do 2 a year.
Spring and fall.
All right. My recommendation this week is sort of piggybacking off of the recent Renaissance. I don't know how you would work Devon Sawa's name into that, but there's a movie coming out tomorrow, which is in theaters, I believe, limited and then rentable, called Black Friday, which Devon Sawa stars in with Bruce Campbell, sort of. And we obviously Scream Queens is a thing, but like Scream Kings, right? Like as far as like leading men in horror movies, you got to think Bruce Campbell. But Devon Sawa, just from 90s alone, as far as like Final Destination and Idle Hands, but then he's currently on Chucky. He's got Black Friday coming tomorrow. I'm sure he's done a few other spooky things. Mm-hmm. And then this thing came out at the end of last year, the end of 2020. I'm not going to describe this movie very much because those who choose to watch it, I do kind of want them to go in as blind as possible because it is a very surprising, dark, unexpected. It's just I just think it works better that way. It did for me because I knew very little about it, except that at the time, Devin was really promoting it because it had gotten, I think it's like 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. And for actors who are doing low budget VOD fare, it's not often that you get something in the 90s, and this was very well received. And I watched this while I had COVID and was isolating in a hotel room.
Perfect.
Either on Christmas Eve or Christmas.
After you see this movie, everyone, you'll know why I'm laughing.
Look, I knew I was. Look, I wasn't getting. I knew I wasn't getting the Santa Claus or something like that. Sure. Which is way darker because they kill Santa. But this film is called Hunter x Hunter, not to be confused with however you say that, Hunter x Hunter. Manga series. But just two words next to each other, Hunter x Hunter. It's written and directed by a guy named Sean Linden, who I don't know, but it stars Devon Sawa and Nick Stahl, who also has had a long career, but is known for a lot of roles he did when he was younger in the 90s, like Devon, like Man Without a Face with Mel Gibson. And he actually played John Connor in Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. And he was in Bully and Sin City, unrecognizable because he is like all morphed out and mutant yellow.
And there's a very good profile on him, I think in THR just a week or two ago, because he had a terrible drug problem, but he's clean now. And he did a really interesting interview kind of about what his career in life had been like, sort of barely managing and then not managing, having substance problems while having this very thriving career for a while.
And he was also the lead, I believe, of HBO's Carnival.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Which was 2-3 seasons. It wasn't very, it wasn't a long running show, but yeah. And then Camille Sullivan, who is a Canadian actress. This is sort of a Canadian American co-production. And all I'll say is that it follows a off the grid survivalist family, a father and mother and daughter. And the daughter is sort of preteen, and they live in the remote wilderness. And they they sell fur, like they trap animals and skin them and sell fur to the local outposts and stores and stuff like that. And it's what happens when this world sort of collides with another very dangerous type of predator that's works its way into their area. So that's all I'll say about this, but I really, really enjoyed it. This is the type of thing that does brighten up my Christmas mood, so it's fine. Eric knows me, and it's sort of morbid and disturbing enough for me to appreciate. And I really liked it. Okay.
No, it's great. I think it's great. I highly recommend it as well, except just to be like, yeah, be prepped, going in that it will not be light. I also will say I was not the only one to make this comparison, but a few weeks ago, I recommended the movie. God, now I'm forgetting the title of it. Thomas and Mackenzie movie. Leave No Trace. Yeah. I almost said Leave No Harm. Leave No Trace. A lot of people brought up comparison between the two, positively, just like, oh, it reminded me of, because they both are about a dad who's very much the force in a family who's keeping them so off the grid, so living this very not of the modern
to
day
their detriment.
Yeah. Very different movies tonally and what they're trying to accomplish, but they're both great movies, so they actually would make kind of a cool double bill. But yeah, I recommend it as well.
And if there was a little choppiness there, it's because I had to take like a 20-minute detour to recover my hacked Netflix account. Someone stole my account, but I got it all back rather quickly. A lot more quicker and easier than I thought it would be, considering these types of things that happen, how commonplace they are.
I guess
what a fucking hassle it is.
Right. I guess that's the quote unquote upside of something being probably very common these days, is Netflix has to be ready for people coming to them saying, someone just told me.
I even with something as common as that, the solution has usually never been this easy for me. Someone hacked my PlayStation account a few months ago, and that was a nightmare. Netflix being too big to fail and being the juggernaut that it is, obviously, they have the right people able to do the right things at the right time. Okay. Amazing Spider-Man, Eric. Amazing Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. I mentioned at the top of this episode that we get within this sort of a lore building, as flashbacks, a mystery, a background mystery going on with regards to Oscorp, a dying Norman Osborn,
never seen,
and then Peter's father, his research with Kirk Connors. His father developed the spider, and through it, sort of a breakthrough, not a full breakthrough, but a breakthrough in the sense that Oscorp now uses like spider DNA enhanced, webbing, tinsel, this wire, but like then also the surrounding cloud of their death as they flee the scene after a young Peter Parker sees that someone's broken into their home, and then he's taken over to Aunt May and Uncle Ben. I can't, with this movie and the next movie, recall caring about any of that or wondering if any of it really worked, because we never saw the end of it. We never got the final puzzle piece to see
if you haven't watched Amazing Spider-Man 2, we'll just say there's more of this, but there's certainly not resolution.
There's never been a payoff to it.
Yeah.
That's why we've got No Way Home, to solve this.
To bring back Campbell Scott.
But so I think, and I think I'm still right after only watching the first one. What I've remembered about these movies, and I think I also mentioned this on a past episode, that my middle child, this was her Spider-Man movies. This was her Spider-Man. She was so beside herself and distraught when they didn't make a third one. Right. And, and also coupled with the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series being canceled around the same years. But the standout here was Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. Was like their chemistry, and Emma Stone, who's very charismatic and very fun to watch, and then presenting just in a very short time. In fact, this is the only Spider-Man movie of the three Spider-Men where he basically just tells his love interest he's Spider-Man in the first movie. In the first movie. And so she's with it. She's in it. She's hip. She's wow and how, or whatever it is. And she's good to go. And Garfield is these are very different. This is a different world than the Raimi world. He's a very different Peter Parker. He's a very introverted, quiet kid, too quiet, I don't know, but he's also a cool teen because he's got a Hitchcock Rear Window poster and he's got a Johnny Cash poster, and he's not like those other kids. And he rides a skateboard in New York City, and he's awkward and he makes weird hand gestures, and he's like, you know, and so he fits with that Gwen Stacy, who's also sort of awkward.
Right.
Yeah. And
it was a big attempt to me, because we talked about the fact that even by the time of the first Raimi movie, the sort of the stereotype nerd that Peter Parker was in the 60s had kind of gone out of style, both as like a thing in pop culture, but even as something to be degraded for, like, you love books, you nerd.
By the 80s, nerds were getting revenge.
They were already getting revenge. Yes, but you know, Raimi's movie, it works because the whole movie has like a retro feel that he gives it. But this was definitely an attempt to, like, let's update Peter Parker. Some people thought, but he's too cool. But definitely the idea was he's not an outcast because he's a nerd. He's just kind of the weird loner kid who he's not like those cool kids. He's cool in a different way. You know, I guess mileage will vary on how successful that is. But I didn't unappreciate the attempt to kind of modernize who like a Peter Parker
would be. And you know, it's still weird that he's picked on,
right?
But then, you know, Flash apparently picks on everyone,
and he's picked on by Flash, but he still stands up to Flash for someone who's getting way worse than him. So we kind of see that there's a pecking order. And I did like that touch. It's like, yeah, Peter gets a little bit fucked with, but then there's like the poor kid getting picked up and really getting fucked with.
And he's like, you like to suck big dicks.
Yes. That was a reference to Heathers, not Matt.
No, that was from the outtakes of Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes.
And then we've got Gwen Stacy, who's the only one who can talk Flash down, like, hey, big guy, sun's getting real low. Like, she sort of steps in and hulks him down.
Right.
Like, don't you have someone to be Flash? Don't you have homework to do? I'm very upset with you. I don't know. I feel like they have some other, you know, we learned Flash went to Captain Stacy's funeral at the end. She's got some power over him. Modernize Peter Parker. Bring in a director who is known for, like, at this point, only real theatrical release was 500 Days of Summer, which, you know, as far as like a movie that's supposed to focus more heavily on making a believable relationship out of Peter and Gwen and teen angst and their human dynamic of it. They're not picking an action director. They're not picking someone like Sam Raimi, who comes with a catalog of films. This is a relative newcomer to the scene,
which is
Mark
something
Webb.
the MCU would do many times after this.
Yes, after the MCU sort of perfected their give and take control, you know, as far as like bringing in new directors, but also lording over most everything they do to make sure it fits within the Marvel package, which we just saw the first biggest breakout from that with Eternals.
Yep.
As far as style and pacing and tone.
Interesting, by the way, something I did not recall is that Kevin Feige was an executive producer on this movie. You know, Feige had worked on all three of the Raimi movies while Marvel Studios was still not making their own stuff. Then they make their own stuff. At this point, like, yes, he has an EP credit, but we kind of had learned later, it's like they would give their notes and their thoughts on these movies, but Sony could and did ignore them. Like, you know, they were ultimately they had no power. So even though Feige isn't listed as an EP here, he was not creatively in control at all. Yeah, well, and I don't think he has that credit on the second one, by the way.
So timeline wise, the last Spider-Man movie landed a year before the MCU started.
Yep.
Now we're in the MCU.
This movie opened 2 months after Avengers.
I was going to say, where was this with positioning to Avengers in 2012?
2 months after Avengers has just accomplished one of the many impossible things that we never thought we'd see in a movie with superheroes.
I will say that, like, maybe it's good that this movie was a reboot, considering what the MCU had accomplished just in the first phase, and not a follow-up to the Tobey Maguire, which probably would have come sooner than 2012, perhaps, if they had let that go. Different disparate stories regarding, like, the decision to reboot, you know, and then Sam Raimi saying that he wasn't creatively satisfied with what he had to do, and then also thinking he couldn't get it done on the time and the schedule that they wanted him to do it. And there was talk he wanted Vulture to be in it with John Malkovich, and he just stepped down, and the decision was made to, and I think maybe one of the reasons was because of the MCU, was because it's like, hey, we can't release that Spider-Man universe now that the MCU is gone. We got to do something new, something zippy, something snappy, something the kids will talk about.
I think the thing that's like I said, it's still surprising me that because just if you look at the financial success of those three movies,
I know, like as far as how much money Spider-Man 3 made,
so it's still surprising to me they didn't make a fourth one with Tobey. Once they decided not to, I think the thing that really was surprising and that got so much negativity towards this movie going into it was that it wasn't just a reboot or new Spider-Man. It was that they were going to do the origin again. Because there was a version of this movie that just kind of did what James Bond used to do. And just, here's Spider-Man having adventures, and Mary Jane, there could be someone playing Mary Jane. And let's not directly address those other movies, but maybe they happened, maybe they didn't. There's even a version of this movie where they're like, you know what, let's take him back to high school, but he's already Spider-Man. Kind of what like they would do with Tom Holland, and they didn't. Instead, they chose 10 years after a hugely successful movie. Let's show him again get bit and Uncle Ben die and him have to learn.
But okay, so let's show him getting bit differently under different circumstances. Different circumstances with his parents, different circumstances with getting bit, different circumstances with bullying at school, different circumstances. Discovering his strength and his powers, different to Uncle Ben's death in a certain way. Different,
but it's the same story.
No, I know. I'm saying like, they're still repeating the same progression.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the costume an hour in. It's almost exactly the same. And I will say this: I actually quite enjoyed this movie. It's the second one where.
Okay, so Amazing Spider-Man, good Peter Parker, great Gwen Stacy.
Yep.
And I think very good May and Ben. Obviously, you can't go too wrong with
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen is
so
amazing.
Great.
The only thing I don't like is when they kind of go out of their way, make 3 left turns to try and do the "with great power comes great responsibility" line, but like shift the words around so that so it's like, your father said that if you could do good, that it wasn't just something you had to do. It was a response. Like they had to reword it so that it wasn't that quote. And it was so obvious. But he's great. And the death scene is sad. And listening to the voicemail is sad. And it's all well done.
It's all well done. It's just, it can't completely overcome the, why are we watching this again so soon? The strange decision to just do it as an origin again.
Nothing can overcome that. And nothing can also quite overcome the way the lizard looks. That's another thing. Like just lizard. There's only, it's one thing to try to like update someone's costuming for the big screen, like something like a Green Goblin or something where it's in the comics, it's somebody putting on a mask or a certain suit of armor or whatever. But when you're taking something that is going to definitely have to be a CG monster and also making them look different than what we're used to from the traditional comic book page, which I will grant obviously looks amazing. I love the way the lizard looks in the comics.
Yeah.
But how do you put that lizard on the screen, not have it look bad, but also not lose the humanity behind the lizard character? Because, we do want, there is a call for Reese OnlyFans to be recognizable somewhere within that computer-generated imagery, right?
Right. A lot of people made the joke that he looked like the Goombas in the Super Mario Brothers movie, the one with Bob Hoskins. I was like, I didn't love the design. I also
did.
There's one scene
he did look
where
like
he wears the lab coat and then it gets all shot up. But
there's a couple scenes, and briefly wears the lab coat so that he's not just out there just free button it all over New York.
Right.
He's not like another stretch of this movie is where when he takes the serum, he kind of goes insane, which is like, you know, we can draw that conclusion ourselves, I guess. It's never explicitly said that you go nuts, though we did see the mouse lizard eating some other creature, but like he goes from like, hey, my arm's back, this is great for humanity, to like, human beings suck, I am the new god, you know, like I can create perfection, everyone will look like me with no penis. So I don't know, but
that is what he says.
Another outtake. Okay, Flash, what's this dude's name? Oh, I have
Chris Zilka.
He's from Leftovers.
Yes.
He played the Garvey son on Leftovers for the first 2 seasons of that show. And I think that's all I kind of know him from, perhaps. But yeah, the big heavy hitters here were the fact that they got 2 bona fide celebrities, long timers, to play Uncle Ben and Aunt May.
Yeah.
And began what would become a de-aging process
right
of both of those characters. So from the first 2 to these to Marissa Tomei and whoever it is that we
I looked it up, and Rosemary Harris, when she started playing Aunt May, I thought that should be our third line here. She was 75 versus Sally Field being 56. And by the way, they make Sally Field look older, I think, because Martin Sheen is considerably older than her. Martin Sheen is 72 when he did this movie. So they definitely try to make her more matronly, because she's only 4 years older than Marissa Tomei is when she first plays May in Civil War. But with Marissa Tomei, they're like, she's hot Aunt May, and we're not going to try to age her up at all. Just let her look like Marissa Tomei. She looks great. With Sally Field, I think they were like, well, she has to be like, we're trying to make her look like she's Martin Sheen's wife,
it's not like 20-year age gaps are unheard of between couples.
No.
That they probably wanted to make it a 10-year age gap or something like that.
Right. But yeah, it is a very funny, the younger, sexier Mays as we progress, being a thing.
And pretty soon we're just gonna get one of those weird situations where the aunt is somehow younger than Peter himself, because of basically the aunt was born after him.
Right. It's a funny thing in the comics, because Aunt May always was typically in the original comics drawn to look extremely elderly to a strange degree, because it's like, this is his aunt, why does she look like his grandmother? But it was just a thing.
It's just what people thought of aunts as being, right?
Right. We should mention, you mentioned the parents thing, and that was weird from the beginning too, because the promotions of this, I remember, were a lot of like secret origin revealed or the true story. And in the comics, we meet Peter, his parents are dead, he's living with his aunt and uncle, and it was never important who his parents were. Now, a few years in, they decided to do a story about who were his parents, and it was a funny kind of out of nowhere thing, which was his parents were spies, was the big reveal, and they died on a mission. It still wasn't important to him as Spider-Man. It just was like, he kind of found out things he didn't know about his parents. We understood who they were, and it's a comic book, so they made it something kind of bigger than life. And that was still kind of it. It was, so this movie making them so important and making his father tied into like spider experimentation and all this stuff. I was like, okay.
Then it became basically, Spider-Man became his default legacy, right? Like, because it was his father's work. Then it also works to tie him into the villain of the movie, because you always have to have that weird connection. And for better or for worse, sometimes they force it too hard. But here, he feels also directly responsible for, he has to stop Lizard. He has to stop Connors, because he's the one who helped him make that breakthrough with it, the equation. And that all came from his father's secret work that he discovered in his dad's old things. And it also, the tie, his past directly ties to Kirk Connors and Oscorp.
Yeah.
And that's what brings him into this world where, it just so happens that Gwen Stacy is also a part of that world. So
I will mention, because some other nerd might, I just remembered as we're talking, I was like, oh, didn't the Ultimate Comics give Richard Parker something a little akin to this? And it was that Richard Parker in the Ultimate Comics helped invent what became the Venom symbiote. So that was his kind of connection to Spider-Man's present, but it still wasn't in the way this is being like, a weird like chosen one thing for Peter himself and this mystery aspect, because they make it clear that there's still like more to learn in this movie.
A couple Peter things here. One is, and this was mocked at the time, it doesn't take a decade later to make fun of it, was the Bing search engine placement.
Yes, I wrote that down too.
Which was at the time it was called out because it was
Bing was an instant failure. So yeah.
I this bothered me, Eric. Like, beat it, kid. You know, that's what I'd say if I was Aunt May, because he comes home and he's just like, "What are you making? Spaghetti and meatball?" And she's like, "Spaghetti and meatballs." He's like, "Ah, you kidding? Who would have want fucking Aunt May spaghetti and
meatballs? That sounds delicious.
Great. If I came home and I heard spaghetti and meatballs was for dinner, that'd be an amazing day. Like, God, what a drip. Yeah. So anyway, but he's like, you know who doesn't eat spaghetti and meatballs? Johnny Cash.
He never would.
Okay, so he basically goes snooping around Oscorp, and then we get the cross-species genetics, the fact that Kurt Connors wrote a book called Splice of Life, which made me laugh.
We also get the weirdness of I don't think this is a thing. They want to put Gwen into this scenario. So she has a high school student, has an internship. Okay, fine. It's a stretch, but okay. But then they're like, this is Dr. Connor's head intern, Gwen Stacy, and she's like leading the tour and speaking with such authority. And like, she's a high school student. What's happening?
And mocking and laughing Rodrigo Guevara when he's like thrown out of the building because Peter took his pass. That guy comes back in the third movie as Jackal, by the way. We never got to see that, but and he makes clones. He makes clones of Gwen Stacy.
And he's obsessed with Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so she's leading the tour. Then we get the spider bite. It's gross on the back of his neck.
Also, it is a funny moment where all those spiders fall on him. Like a ton of spiders fall on him.
But then we get also at the same time, while he's at the lab, we get what's this dude's name? The evil doctor for Oscorp who's working with Norman Osborn to save his life.
Irfan Khan, who also is in Jurassic World, and
he says he's like Norman Osborn is dying, and they're relying on Connor's research to have saved his life by now. He's sort of years in deficit. He's late on this, and Norman needs this thing right now.
And he's the because again, Norman's not in this movie, but they want us to know he's a presence. And so this guy kind of keeps speaking for Norman throughout the film.
Did we ever find out who the shadowy man is at the end? I can't remember the second movie.
I believe he's in the second movie, but I think it's still
because it's not Norman. It's another go-between, right?
No, it's another go-between. Michael Massey playing that guy.
Yeah, his voice. Yeah, Michael Massey has a very specific voice. So, okay, he's bitten. He's finding. He's almost immediately he passes out in a subway car, and he proceeds to comedically accidentally beat everyone up on the train.
He does. It's fun, even though you also wonder about how much reports would happen about that. Also, I will say, it definitely is a precursor to a very funny moment in Into the Spider-Verse, where here it's more accidentally lecherous, which is his hand sticking to the girl's shirt and ripping it off. But I was like, oh, this is reminding me, but this came first, of Into the Spider-Verse, where Miles sticks to Gwen's hair and can't let go.
And and the side effects of this, way more than the first movie, feel like a drug addict. Feel like May and Ben should have cause for concern here. Is like twitchy and sweaty and like eating frozen mac and cheese. And when we see him, he's things are sticking to his feet and to his keyboard keys are sticking to his fingers. That's the Bing experience. And
it's the Bing life.
And then from here, after he gets his powers, he decides he's going to go to Connor's house.
Oh, and they do a funny nod, by the way, of him Well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but the whole thing of him, there's no wrestling scene, but his inspiration for the costume is
right. Once he starts after Ben's death, and he starts targeting a very, very suspicious amount of blonde ponytailed robbers that are plaguing the city. There seems to be a lot of people who fit that profile. I don't know if they're clones like the stormtroopers, but they're everywhere apparently. Yeah, so he falls in the wrestling ring, sees the luchador mask, and that's also after the thugs, the goons, the schmobos he gets away from were like, "We've seen your face," so he's like, "Oh, I better cover this." And then he, speaking of the subway fight, where you're like, there would have been reports of this. It goes also when Peter humiliates Flash on the basketball court, and not just like with the tricks with the sticking the basketball to his fingers, literally the giant dive through the air and the smashing of the backboard,
right?
Where it's like, this is the moment. Even in the first film, had this when he punched Flash Thompson down the hallway.
Right.
It's like you would instantly think back to once Spider-Man showed up. You're like, hey, what about that kid in my school who flipped? Like.
Right.
And I think the MCU movies like did at least a decent job of that by having MJ be like, come on, like Washington DC, like she was able to put things together at least.
Right.
Even though in the MCU there was never, Flash is a totally different type of student, a classmate, and like doesn't deserve to be like drop kicked into the fucking mine shaft or something like that. So. Okay, some of this all blends together. He's helping Kirk Connors. The relationship between him and Dr. Connors, it isn't the Otto Octavius mentorship that Spider-Man 2 had. It doesn't feel close in any way, even though he was close to his dad.
Yeah.
Recent fans he plays a good character, and so this should be pointed out. The evil Oscorp dude is like, hey, we needed this cure yesterday. We need human trials right now. After Peter helps him fix that whatever decay rate algorithm, and things start working on the mouse, this guy wants human trials. He's like, hey, why don't you just go to the Veterans Center and sneak in on some amputees and give it to them without them knowing? And which is horrible. And so Doc Connors is a good person. He's like, this is bad. If I don't do this, not only am I going to lose everything, which is a very Norman Osborn first movie thing, this guy is going to kill people possibly. And so he tests it on himself for very different reasons, but also a few of the similar reasons. But he is a better person. He is a good person, like Otto was in the second movie.
Yes.
Before things all go horribly wrong, where it could be argued that Norman was not the best.
No.
He wasn't a raving, frothing psychopath, but he also wasn't the best father, the best lead scientist,
Right.
just a little far beyond driven when it comes to his projects. But Connors, he does test on himself. It is something that he wanted to do probably someday, is to use this on himself. But things get accelerated. And this is where sort of the disconnect work. They took care of the Octavius problem in the second movie by making him being controlled by sort of the sentient AI within the tentacles. Here, he makes himself into the lizard and he's like, hey, this is the way to be.
Right.
I got to make everyone like this. And it didn't, it's not the best thing. The whole plot at the end of this movie to gas the city,
which is the one big thing I forgot about all the lizard people. Yeah.
That's not it's not the greatest. It's less than ideal. They set up the Gawali machine or whatever. They're like, oh yeah, the Gawali machine, we were going to use this, but then somebody thought it could be weaponized. Womp womp. So but yeah, Peter goes on. This is sort of, a change where it's like he can't find the guy who killed Uncle Ben. He's out to get somebody, and he's angry young man. So he's beating up all these lookalikes. And so the citizen antagonist in this movie, there's no Jameson in either of these Amazing Spider-Man films.
Yeah, they established he's a photographer, but he doesn't start making money off that.
Yeah, he's got no work gig. Nothing's going on with him. So Captain Stacy, who we just saw being played by James Cromwell in Spider-Man 3, here played by Dennis Leary, steps in as the lesser foil, because a lot of this movie, the bulk of the second half of this movie is also cops versus Spider-Man. It's sort of there's not Bugle versus Spider-Man like this guy's a menace. It's Captain Stacy saying like, we won't tolerate vigilantism. And being in a modernized movie, Captain Stacy is a bit of a throwback character. He's a father who likes everyone to sit at the table together.
Mm-hmm.
He also he's a husband who wants his wife to ask him how his day was, right? Like he doesn't want to hear about his daughter's period because so
right.
He's a very
bodily functions.
Yeah, he's an old-fashioned father who also but not so much that he doesn't have a redemption turning point to the not just because he sees it's Peter, but even before that, like he believes Peter enough to check up on Kirk Connors. He's not so stubborn that he's going to constantly think Spider-Man is up to no good.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to mention, this movie definitely pointedly does two things with Spider-Man that the Raimi movies didn't do. That some fans were upset the Raimi movies did do. Again, they love those movies. Well, the first two, they love those movies overall, but there was always going to be a contingent who complained about the organic web shooters. So this one gives him mechanical web shooters. It kind of splits the difference, because in the comics, yes, it's a funny 1960s thing that Peter Parker is a high school student who, with scientific aptitude, but kind of like your thing about how Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2 is like, hey, I've got this great invention and I made this other amazing invention as part of that, is that Peter Parker is bit by the spider and then is like invents these web shooters that, like, holy shit, like as a 15 or 16-year-old, just if he could have always invented these web shooters, like he should be like already like making money off.
We see him make mistakes with them, but still like these are weapons. You can give these to soldiers in the field, right?
But this Spider-Man, he does take an Oscorp invention and modify it. So it's like that was their like little in between thing. Was he? Well, doesn't to be fair,
he's the number 2 student at his school,
right?
Number 1 student. That's Gwen.
Yeah, Gwen could have made him from scratch. And then the other thing they put in, I was going to say, is as much as he is a angry, vengeance-seeking Spider-Man, in those early scenes, they definitely do their best to put in the Spider-Man banter and jokes, which Tobey Spider-Man never really did. He has a couple of pretty bad lines with Goblin early on, but then that's it.
But then the other thing is like,
but the jokester Spider-Man is here. He's not here for a lot of it, but in that middle section, they definitely put in a bunch of like him when he's like fucking with the guy and like the sneeze and webbing him.
Yeah.
And stuff in the backseat.
Well, this is how I see it. Peter Parker in the first movies, there's not a huge difference between the few wisecracks Tobey Maguire does as Spider-Man and pizza time Peter Parker. Right. Like it's not a huge gap there. With Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, he wouldn't do that in school. Like putting on that suit allows him to express himself and be more of an extrovert in a way that he isn't normally. Like he's freer. He's a looser person who could do that and to crack with the wise and to do the awful Eric. I'm swinging here.
But it's like the movie, man.
Yes. Every kid loves a reference to Midnight Cowboy.
Well, this kid does. He's an outsider.
No, I'm sure he would probably, if we looked at the other wall, he'd have a Midnight Cowboy poster.
There you go.
So, anyway, I just feel like the suit allows him to be a sort of a different, more expressive person than he normally is. And he's an even more of an expressive person than he is with Gwen, like they're still both, doe-eyed and awkward and bumbly around each other, which is part of the charm of this couple.
Oh yeah, and let me reiterating what you're saying, but they so charming to get. I mean, obviously they really fell in love making this movie. They didn't last, but who does in Hollywood? But great.
Did she write a 10-minute song about him though?
She did not. Great chemistry. And she is so naturally charming. But in this movie, especially, she's very fetching and fun, and does weird great in a way that isn't like the kind of the worst cliches of manic pixie dream girl. She just seems like a real person.
Which,
with, like, her mannerisms.
We should bring up 500 Days of Summer if we're talking about
right.
One of the ground zero epitomes of manic pixie dream girls. But that's been around. That was around decades before that too.
Anyway. Oh
yeah. Hold on. Say something. I got to close my door.
Okay. She's great in it, and rewatching this was a reminder of the fact that people love them in it. I think even people who were not as big on this movie were high on the chemistry of the two of them together.
All right.
Oh, and her one of her brothers, I was like, hey, that's the older brother, although here he's the younger brother, from Vacation 2015, which is an underrated movie in my book.
I didn't remember how many times they actually say the word Branzino in this movie. It's quite a bit, and I still didn't really know what it was. Is Branzino night a thing? She can't just be like, do you like fish? Is Branzino a specific fish? I should look it up. I'll tell you what Branzino sounds like. It sounds like a disgruntled, hardened New York City detective who doesn't play by the rules. Tony Branzino. All right.
Branzino.
That could have been Al Pacino's character's name in Heat. I know that's LA, but anyway. But he wasn't from LA. He worked all over.
That's right.
Who's a real nerd? Neil McCauley.
Oh, is that the
That's De Niro's character in that movie.
Oh yeah.
what a horrible life that guy leads. All right.
I do like when Connors becomes the lizard. First, when he, quote unquote, just gets his arm and hand back, it's like scaled over, but then it like sheds away and it looks just like a human.
Yeah,
hand.
it's like kind of like Deadpool's penis.
Yes, exactly.
That's what they drew inspiration from. So let's talk about Connors, even as his first stint as the lizard, as he's Deadpool penising all over himself. He's like, I'm going to stop this guy from going to the Veterans Center. Like, his first thing to do before he goes insane is he tries to stop this dude from going to test this stuff on innocent people. So it's almost a hero moment that turns bad, because then it's a disaster on the bridge and Spider-Man has to leap into action, interrupting Branzino night. But very good, cool. I like the moment with him and the kid, and like giving him the mask to give him courage to climb through the car. It's very well done, and Garfield's great in that scene. And then we get C. Thomas Howell, who, if you don't know, those listening, had a career in the 80s, and has acted steadily throughout the years, but is now as somebody who once headlined a movie or two. I believe first he became king of the mockbusters. But now he's just like appears in things like he was on like 3 episodes of Walking Dead as some guy, who we were supposed to care about when he died. And there was like, oh, he was just at Hilltop for a while. That's it. Here he plays a character credited as I think it's Jack's dad. That's it.
Sure.
Jack's
dad will have an important role to play later in the movie.
Well, let's talk about that. We're jumping all over, but yeah. So where the first 2 movies had sort of crowd-pleasing moments where New York fought on behalf of Spider-Man to help him,
did their best to help defend.
Like, it was more of a tag team effort. It was New York and Spider-Man versus Goblin. And like, they throw trash at his head, and then the citizens on the train try to do their best to protect Spider-Man from Dr. Octopus. Didn't turn out so well, but we get the gist. So here it's really like New York is like the new construction workers of New York rally to Spider-Man's aid because Spider-Man
very conveniently placed cranes. Yes.
Maybe you can explain this to me, because I know he's injured. I know he's hurt. He's beat up. He's holding his leg. is there some reason he is no longer able to swing from buildings?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, I didn't know if there was something going on because you and I have played Spider-Man video games where you could swing fucking anywhere.
Right.
And that's all, as far as what we know about Spider-Man, all you need is a tall enough building.
Sure.
Like, he can't swing around Queens easily, which is what I thought was interesting about the Spider-Man MCU movies, is like, it's not till the end of the first movie
They
that he
keep him out
gets
of
into Manhattan.
Yeah.
So he's not swinging everywhere. And it was very
Right.
difficult in like DC with the monument. Like, it's not, or like chasing someone through a park. Like, you can't, like, that's where someone like
There was a
Vulture would
very
have-
funny Peter David written Spider-Man comic in the 80s about him stuck in the suburbs and having to keep jumping on top of cars and stuff because he just does not have his usual mode of
That's why he sticks to like, the skyscrapers. But yeah, so he's literally coming down this boulevard and like he could swing on these buildings, but they have to line up the cranes for him.
Right.
What a amazing coordinated effort. It just didn't play as heart swelling and as well as the original one.
I remember it getting
it just seems silly.
unintentional laugh in the theater because it just was like, it was trying for something he didn't. And like we see, I also like the scene with Jack with his son is a good scene. And has a grateful father that works, but then they wanted to have this kind of like, and we'll pay it off later.
Do you think some of the pshawing of this scene had to do with the fact that like it was more unbelievable for these workers to be instantly as coordinated as they are in their efforts than it is for there to be a human lizard walking around the city? Like, as far as like, this could never happen because everything is going seamlessly and going too quickly. And everyone's, the power of New York can't will this into being the way that the movie expects us to believe. Then we've got, we didn't talk about, after the bridge scene, Peter's like, I'm responsible for this lizard. I got to track him. He goes to Dr. Connors. Fortunately, in that moment, Peter figures out that he's lizard because both of them are saying things to each other where it's like, if they were completely stupid, would they not know that they each were talking to Spider-Man and lizard?
Right.
Like, because it's like, why are you interested in reptiles? Or why are you defensive about reptiles? Like, what's happening here?
What's your issue with spiders?
He's like, now get out of here. I have to do lizard things. And it's kind of like, it's also obvious. But then when he sees that, the mouse gone insane, he realizes it. And then after their next interaction, Connors realizes that Peter, because of his camera, is Spider-Man. So he attacks him at Midtown High. This is probably my favorite lizard Spider-Man scene in the movie. It's very fun. It's got a great Stan Lee cameo.
It has one of the best Stan Lee cameos. We didn't mention Spider-Man 3's cameo, which is the first time he spoke in a Spider-Man movie. A fun, cute little moment. He says "Nuff said," one of his like real life catchphrases. This one he does not speak in, but it was instantly a big favorite. A lot of people saying it at the time. It was the best Stan cameo in the midst of what's just a very fun fight scene through the school.
And we talk about like,
I really love them both on the ceiling. That like Spider-Man jumps on the ceiling, but Lizard does too, and so like them crawling after him on the ceiling.
I just wanted to draw attention to sort of the instant difference between a character like Gwen and how she's portrayed in this, and the three hostage situations that Mary Jane had to go through, which is like she's in mild danger in this scene where he's like, I'm going to throw you out the window. Again, just a little tease of Gwen Stacy falling from something, catches and being caught with a web. But by the end of this movie, there's elements of peril that surround her, but she's also heroic. Like she stays in Oscorp to evacuate people. She's more proactive. She makes the actual antidote because she's the #1 student at Midtown High. And so, she's a much more interactive and proactive and heroic female lead, and is not just somebody that is taken hostage by the villain.
I want to mention, I last week recommended the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, which, again, the way these things always work, Spectacular Spider-Man was taking kind of all these versions of Spider-Man before and mixing them up. but it has too had its own influence on things. And that show really pushed Gwen has Peter's like-minded scientific genius. So this movie definitely pulled from that version of Gwen, as far as the fact that she is very much his kindred spirit in that regard.
And then the end all takes place on the top of Oscorp Tower, and Lizard's trying to green cloud the city. But guess what? It gets switcherooed and he blue clouds the city, including himself. But
it's a Superman 2 trick.
In the process, Captain Stacy, who at that point has unmasked and seen that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, has come around
in a fun fight scene where he's you have to kind of go with the fact that it's dark enough for him to be jumping around, knocking out all these cops without anyone spotting him until Captain Stacy.
Well, he's also webbing their eyes and stuff like that. And but yeah, he's he gets some shotgun blasts in on Lizard, taking out his flippers and stuff like that. But he dies, and so we get God forbid another reboot of Spider-Man. Beginning of Spider-Man doesn't end with a funeral, and it's not Norman Osborn this time though. It is Captain Stacy, and with it comes I
was just gonna say a little twist on his in the comic books. Gwen and Peter were a couple for quite a while. When Captain Stacy was killed in a fight with Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus, actually, and in his dying words, revealed to Spider-Man that he'd figured out that he was Peter Parker.
He just knew. It wasn't he had unmasked him or anything like that.
Right.
This is one of those things where it's actually an interesting way to end the movie, because there's quite a few minutes after this final fight. The Lizard doesn't get killed again. So one of the things about No Way Home is they all died. It's well, he didn't.
And it's but it's also the first of any of these Spider-Man movies where the villain is just captured, because even Sandman just kind of floated away. But he's straight up just and he's jailed at the end of this movie.
We've mentioned that an argument could have been made that Otto survived.
I know it's ambiguous, but
So but yeah, it ends with him saying stay away from Gwen. He gets to do the speech, the lines about someone close to you is going to be killed one day or hurt because you're going to make enemies. So he's the one who drives that home. Peter agrees with them enough to follow through with that. But also Gwen, a few characters in this movie figure things out. And Gwen figures out it's he made you promise to stay away from me. But also nothing in that promise. I don't know why Peter just couldn't be hey, look, your dad's dying wish was for me to stay away from you, so I'm going to honor that.
Right.
He could, nothing about the promise means he couldn't tell her that that's what he's doing.
Right.
But she still figured it out. But anyway,
it's also have your cake and eat it too. Think of it. It's kind of weird and silly that again they're taking so much from the first Raimi movie, like you said, ending with a funeral and ending with a weird thing of Peter being I can't be with a woman I love because she'll be in danger. But then they want to subvert it. So it's but it's so strange. Why even do that? Because it's I made this promise to your father, can't be with you. But then the very end being I'm going to break that promise. So it's a strange back and forth there.
It is because I don't know. It is also funny when the English teacher comes in, given the nature of this movie and the context surrounding it and the fact that it's an actual reboot that is, way too soon for most people's tastes, for a hit trilogy,
right?
That the woman comes in and she's Shakespeare said there are only 10 different plots in all of fiction. I say there's only one, and literally it feels like that one is Spider-Man, Spider-Man's origin.
Right. Yeah, that definitely seemed meta, that mention. They do directly. Again, things happen efficiently in this movie. So Gwen finding out right away. This is the only time we've gotten in any of the Spider-Man movies gotten to Peter and Flash could be friends. No Way Home did establish more sad side of Flash to build upon, because in the comics they ultimately become friends and Flash gets redemption that didn't happen in the Raimi movies, but this movie at the end, it's like
not even at the end. Like he came up after Uncle Ben died to say he was sorry, and he felt bad.
So they quickly seem to be wanting to get to that.
And he's a big Spidey fan. Yeah,
and which is all they do that obviously in the MCU movies, but that's from the comics as well.
Who's making those shirts? Who's making money off those shirts?
Right. Because that was milked in the comics for quite a while, and No Way Home did it, of the guy who beats up or psychologically beats up Peter in the MCU loves Spider-Man, that being like an ongoing thing before Flash ends up being a buddy to him.
I thought it was a fun and weird creative choice to end this movie with a freeze frame of him thwipping with a background of pigeons.
Right.
Like, no way do they come into play in this movie, but you and I, having played the Sony Spider-Man video game, know those pigeons well, and chasing those pigeons throughout Manhattan. Don't go chasing water pigeons. Okay,
it's a fun little finally again, the final Spidey swinging sequence. We've seen versions of it before, obviously, but him kind of going through the alleyway and stuff. And then very stylized kind of freeze frame there at the end.
I've liked James Horner's score.
He goes into bullet time a little bit.
I didn't like the score.
It's a very generic score, and I agree with you in general on Horner having done a lot of good stuff. But this one, not so much. Not his best.
Famously, all of, if not most of, James Cameron's things. Maybe, I don't know. He for sure did Titanic, and Aliens was a big one.
Well, he did a great superhero one, which is Rocketeer. A really lovely score to that, and he did Wrath of Khan. He did so many great things, but there's coming off of Elfman. Well, obviously Elfman didn't do the third movie, but they still used so many of his themes. This just feels very sort of nothing stood out. I was kind of listening, Claire, because I agree, sometimes we get maybe a little over it didn't have a great memorable theme, so it's not a good score. That's not how it always works, but there was nothing about this score that really stood out or felt special to me.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Well, so the mid-credit scene, again, we are now 5 years into the MCU, and now it's kind of something the MCU basically made it so you have to do credit scenes for all comic book movies. I mean, DC does them too, for the most part. So it was funny to see this here, but a very strange scene with again, they kind of suddenly want to remind you that there's something about his father. Did you tell the boy the truth about his father? And Kirk Connors, they're showing that he's a good guy again, because he's like, you should leave him alone. But it's just it doesn't have a real impact. It's more of than that's awesome. So cool that there's truth about his father. It's weird.
Yeah, again, we never got a payoff, so and it wasn't landing in the first place. It wasn't anything that we cared about the most. With these movies anyway. So,
but I rewatching it, I was like, yes, I remember liking this movie, and I still like it. It's just that it shouldn't have been the origin story again. I mean, there's other specific minutia we don't like about it, but that's where they kind of handicap themselves from the start, I think, is just by, and on top of that, we're going to add this mystery element with his father, but just the fact that, just half, this movie is so a remake of the first Raimi movie where they've changed and updated things. And again, there's a lot of good elements to it. It's well made. These two extremely charming leads. There's some cool moments and cool visuals in it. So I like the movie, but I also understand why it was very hard to be psyched about it. Just because it's it's Spider-Man. We like Spider-Man, but why are we watching Uncle Ben die again? Even though it's well done, but it still is just, you can't kind of get past that about it.
Yeah, and for me, the action scenes aside from the school fight
they're not anything.
Not
that special. I do want to mention this movie, kind of keeping track of where Spider-Man is box office and success-wise, because again, those first three so successful. This movie's coming out right after Avengers. That's tough. It's still a hit. Makes $757 million worldwide. It's number 7 for the year. So this huge fall from being so on top. It's also, I was realizing how quickly things change in 5 years. 4 movies this year make $1 billion. Again, that was not happening until like the past decade, where like multiple movies, it was Avengers, Skyfall, Dark Knight Rises, and the first Hobbit all make $1 billion. But like this movie didn't make as much as the final Twilight movie, which came out, that year. So, but it still shows there's a big audience for Spider-Man. It's worth mentioning it makes more than any MCU movie to that point, except Avengers. So it still shows that like, hey, Spider-Man is a huge draw. Like his movie made more than like that first Captain America movie or Thor, both Iron Man movies at that point. So I can see why.
And you know why?
What?
Martin Sheen.
So it's not like this is a disaster. Yes, it's worth making a sequel that hopefully can just, now that they've done the origin again, the thinking is, okay, even though we're kind of still saddled with this damn mystery about his dad, let's see where we can go. And of course, it didn't go to great places.
And I should mention that the cinematographer is John Schwartzman, half brother of Jason Schwartzman, and you hear a Phantom Planet song in the middle of this movie. All right.
I did not realize that. And I'll mention, lastly, we didn't really talk about, I mentioned his name, but Peter's parents are played by Campbell Scott and Beth Davids. Campbell Scott, best known for like he got sort of a big Star is Born moment with Dying Young, but didn't really become a big star, but he's acted in a bunch of stuff since.
A lot of people would also know him from Singles, which was like the Cameron Crowe movie.
But he's going to be in the new Jurassic World movie next year playing Dodgson from the first movie, because the real Dodgson had turned out to be a real life super creep. So he gets to kind of come back in a notable role or take over a notable role in that. And then I just thought it was funny that Embeth Davids, who's been in a lot of stuff, but you and
Army of Darkness,
both know her best from a Sam Raimi movie. Yes, from Army of Darkness,
or Schindler's List, one of those,
or one of those.
All right. Next time around in 2 weeks, we're going to do The Amazing Spider-Man 2, a movie that I barely remember, but I don't think I enjoyed it all that much.
The only thing I'll say going into it, and we'll talk more about next time, is the best, most comics accurate costume for Spider-Man in any movie is in this movie, but it's not a lot of other things that stand out about it, and that's a problem. But yeah.
Right. Until then, everything is possible, but nothing is real. And Shakma.
Happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate. Otherwise, have two good 2 weeks. And Shakma. That was awkward.
It was.
Shakma!